What that means, Roger, is that somebody has built up their business to a point where it is now reproducible and repeatable, and they usually have reproduced it and repeated it before. So they have a business model, simple business model. You follow this business model. This is what I did. Got all the kinks worked out, made all the mistakes. You follow this business model, your chances of success at operating this type of business are that much greater. So from a 1,000-foot overview, you are leasing or renting a business model, a franchise business model with people to help you build that business up.
Welcome to Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, the go-to podcast for financial advisors aiming to grow their assets under management, stand out in a crowded market, and retain assets nearly forever. Are you advising high net worth clients who own appreciated capital assets? Do you want to help them sell without losing a quarter, a third, or even more of their hard-earned profits to capital gains taxes? Then this podcast is tailored for you. Each episode brings you the latest strategies and expert advice from leading financial advisors, seasoned attorneys, and experienced CPAs. Learn how to maximize your clients' wealth, minimize their taxes, and supercharge your advisory practice with actionable insights. Join us on Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets, where you'll gain the knowledge and tools to set yourself apart and achieve unparalleled success in wealth management. Subscribe now and empower your practice for a brighter, more prosperous future. Welcome to Sterling Insights, Stand Out and Supercharge Your Assets. I am your host, Roger Silk, and today we have a very special guest, Greg Mohr, the Franchise Maven. Greg is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, and he is the founder of Franchise Maven. Greg has helped over 260 people, and he may have an updated count for us, open over 500 franchise territories. And in addition to that, he is the author of Real Freedom and Expert Resilience. I gather, Greg, that you're an engineer by training?
In a past life, Roger, I was a restaurant manager for 15 years and an engineer for 15 years.
Okay. What kind of an engineer were you?
Microelectronic circuit engineer, manufacturing semiconductors.
Manufacturing semiconductors. Is that the thing that now takes a $6 billion fab to do?
That is correct. Yep, the pieces keep getting smaller.
Is that why you're not doing it anymore?
Yeah, I got tired of the corporate world, actually, Roger. After about 30 years in the corporate world, it was time to move on.
Okay, great. Well, if you can give us like a brief overview of how you went from engineer, what your experience in the corporate world was, and now what you're doing with franchises and helping people out.
Absolutely, Roger. So go back to the Wayback Machine real quick. My first introduction to franchising was when I got a job when I was 16, got a job at Taco Bell. As it turned out, I was actually working for a master franchisor. Her name was Kathy, and she owned about 50 Taco Bells. So I helped her build up her teams throughout the Sacramento, California area and all her restaurants. So fast forward, as we were talking about, I was a restaurant manager, then moved up into another restaurant for 15 years, engineer for 15 years. So I got my bachelor's degree in engineering. Then I got a master's degree in business, bought rental properties, dry cleaner, privately owned, with a buddy, storage units with a buddy on that, ran those for a while being an engineer. We both got tired of the corporate world, or they got tired of us, one of the two. And after 30 years in the corporate world, we both split out from the corporate world. Although the dry cleaners was fun, but it was private, so we had to figure it out ourselves. Really a challenge. So I said, I don't want to do that. I want to get back to that franchising thing. That was a lot of fun. So I sold off my stuff, my half of the business to him, and he took over that. And I said, let's go find me a franchise. And that's what I did.
So you went to school, you became an engineer. Then you spent 15 years in essentially the franchise world.
Sorry, I spent 15 years in the microelectronic engineering world as an engineer. That's where I had a couple privately owned businesses. Then after 30 years in the corporate world, then I got out into the franchising world, had my own franchise for about 2 years, I had a franchise consultant help me find that franchise. So after 2 years of that franchise, I said, I really like what that franchise consultant did because he got to sit at home all day and work with wonderful people all over the US. So I said, I don't want to drive around anymore talking to business owners. I want to sit at home and talk to business people and all sorts of different people. So that's what I do now, and I've been doing that for about 12 years.
Oh, okay. If it's okay with you, let's assume the audience, I mean, everybody has heard the term franchise, but can you give us like 100,000 foot overview of what it means when we're talking about a franchise?
What that means, Roger, is that somebody has built up their business to a point where it is now reproducible and repeatable, and they usually have reproduced it and repeated it before. So they have a business model, simple business model. You follow this business model. This is what I did. Got all the kinks worked out, made all the mistakes. You follow this business model, your chances of success at operating this type of business are that much greater. So from 1,000 foot overview, you are leasing or renting a business model, a franchise business model with people to help you build that business up.
Okay. So suppose, and that, do you deal directly with the entrepreneurs? Is that who your customers, clients are people who, I guess, you can tell me who they are. How do they come to you and what are they looking to you to help with, for help with?
Correct, Roger. The people, entrepreneurs come to me, aspiring entrepreneurs, ambitious entrepreneurs, and investors who are looking for a great franchise fit. They are looking for, quite often, a lot of them are just say, I just want to make the most money possible. Some of them are looking for more time with family and friends. Some of them are looking for a retirement opportunity. Some want to leave a legacy for their family. So it varies a little bit on there. So that's one of the things we go over is why. Why are you looking into a franchise right now? What do you see that franchise doing for you? And there's many different types of franchises. So I develop a plan around where they want to be 5 to 10 years from now.
And I realize that probably people come from a wide variety of backgrounds and goals and ages, but if there were such a thing as like an ideal person, family situation, financial situation, all that, an ideal person who would benefit most, say, from a franchise and from your help, what would that person look like?
That person is at a point in their life where they're looking down the road and they're saying, I'm not going to be where I want to be at this point in time on that. I used to be able to say that it was 75% male. That has changed over the years. Now I get about 50-50 male, female. I would say my average age is around 38. A lot of my folks have had experience managing others, have already built up teams. So they've actually run a business within a business. So it's an easy step into franchising for that one, but not all of them. They are a little bit risk tolerant because getting into a business is a little bit risky, but they're willing to be mentored and they're go-getters basically. Because you get into a franchise, you follow the plan, you still got to get up in the morning. Franchise isn't going to call you and say, "Hey, Roger, time to get up and go do things." So self-starters, risk tolerant, average age 38, as low as 25, as high as 65. Imagine that people just get bored and want to do things on that. But, and some experience in the business world. But I've got a couple of gentlemen who just started in the business world that I'm talking to this afternoon that are 25 years old.
What about capital requirement?
Generally speaking, on that, Roger, the franchise is going to have, and different franchises vary on this, but if you've got, I would say, around $200,000 net worth, and you've got around maybe 25,000 cash, we can find something for you on that. And a lot of people are thinking that, what you and I see, Roger, when they're driving around is a brick and mortar type businesses. Those are the ones that are going to require a $500,000 net worth, 100,000 liquid to get into it. But if you go into the service industry, great industry to get into on that, you can get a SBA Express loan for 150, 200,000, and you put $20,000 down on that. So you do have to have decent credit on that one, but we can get you into that with a loan pretty easily.
So, Greg, maybe it would be interesting for the audience if you like kind of walk us through either an example without names or a hypothetical on sort of that entry level. I mean, you're talking a couple 25-year-olds. Most 25-year-olds haven't had the time to put together 200,000 yet, I would think. At least not most 25-year-olds I know.
True.
uh, Suppose you take the young person, whatever, 25, they
Mhm.
have to have 25,000 net worth because they need to collateralize the SBA loan, or how does that work?
Generally speaking, the actual net worth that you're looking at there, which is around probably 200,000 is a good figure for that one. That is what the franchise itself is requiring from you because they don't want you to run out of money, basically, is what that comes down to. So that will go up depending on the investment level of the franchise. A few of the service industries don't have net worth requirements as long as you can get a loan for it. But yes, the SBA is also going to be looking at a few things as well on that. But for an express loan, it's fairly simple, fairly low, $200,000 net worth. It's pretty easy. And two gentlemen I'm working with today, they actually, one's got 150 and the other one's got 150. So they just combined what they have together. So we have a team, the team of two that's going to get it done.
What sort of industries are available? You talked about service industries. What sort of franchise type opportunities are out there today for, say, this entry level, young person who manages to have the requisite cash and capital?
If we could start with the home services, I like essential services. I like things like, HVAC, heating and air conditioning. On that one, good essential service. Plumbing, electrical service, restoration services, and about anything to do with the home. Those are always a good ones, whether it be from, starting from the roof all the way outside into the groundskeeping. Great business to get into. Senior care, another great business to get into. We're all getting older. We all need a little help eventually. Huge one. Tutoring is another good one. We want to make certain our kids get the best education possible, so we do tutoring on that as well. Home business services are another one. Building maintenance. Buildings always need to be maintained. Those are a good one as well. So many different types, many different industries in the services.
Now, are there brand names or franchise names that you can mention just to give some context, or is that something that you can do?
Oh, no, absolutely. So if you want to reduce your risk, you want to start off with something that's got a good name recognition behind it and good solid team of people. You would be going with something like the Neighborly brands. They're the largest home services company in the US. They get about 20 brands, Molly Maids, Mr. Electric, Mr. Rooter. On that, there's a few Authority brands, another huge one on that one. Mr. Sparky, Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, Dry Medic. Then we can also go into horsepower brands. They do a lot of things around the house, roofing installation services on that. The Belfour Group, that's another. Belfour Group is the largest restoration company in the United States. They do most of the cleanup for the hurricane disasters. They also franchise out a restoration company that doesn't just rely on natural disasters. They also do duct cleaning, hood vents for restaurants. So if you don't mind working at night or you're a night person, on that they do all the vent cleaning at night. Huge group of people out there that you can get into. Reduce your risk when you get into something a little bit bigger like that.
So let me take one that I think would be familiar to virtually everybody, plumbing.
Mhm.
So if you have a person, a young man or woman, who's not a plumber, is that something that you think would make sense for somebody who's not a plumber? Let's say they've been sitting behind a desk and they know which way to turn the valve to make the water go on.
You have to get yourself a master plumber to begin with, and that's where a great franchise comes in to help you find that master plumber. Master plumber is going to be running the business essentially as far as the services themselves go. What the franchise wants you to do, and this goes for most franchises, what they want you to do is not be in there working in the business itself. They want you working on the business, building that business up. And that's why I say a lot of the people that I work with have managed teams and managed other people in the past, because that's what a franchise is looking for you to manage those people. Let somebody else go off and do that work for you. You go out in your community, you get yourself known, you go out there, talk with people, kiss the babies. That's your role, is building up that business. So you're not going to be working in that business. Even if you can, they generally, most franchises don't really want you doing that. Because if you're working in the business, you're not taking the time out to build it.
So when somebody purchases a plumbing franchise, I don't know, but what is that in the category that you were talking about before in terms of the capital requirement?
Yeah, that's about 150, 200,000 on that one. That doesn't have a whole lot of equipment. And a lot of the stuff that, you'll have a small, probably a warehouse space with a few pieces and parts on there. But most of the stuff that's anything bigger is you'll just order it and have it shipped to the client site. So it doesn't require a huge build out. So a small office is generally all you need for something like that.
And then let's say we have a young person
Mhm.
and the person is capable, puts up the 25,000 or whatever it is, signs the loan. And so what happens then? Is that the franchise that goes to the franchisor, the 150?
Okay, so once you get started, two things to consider. One is the franchise fee. The franchise fee is what you're going to pay to the franchisor. Generally speaking, across the board, it's somewhere in the vicinity of $50,000, give or take. One-time fee. That's what you pay to the franchisor to get you all the training you need, everything to get that business up and running on that. Ongoing fees to the franchisor that keeps that franchisor in business is the royalties. Those are generally between 5 and 10% off the top every month that you pay to the franchise on there. The rest of that money that I mentioned there, that is actually to get that business going. So with a $150,000 investment, you got 50,000 going to the franchisor. The other 100,000 is for anything you might need. A car wrap with your decals on there, renting out a small office equipment you may need, marketing and advertising, training somebody to be part of your office staff, getting that master plumber in there. But 50,000 is all you pay to the franchise. The rest of it is the investment to get that business built.
And then the franchisor will help you find and hire the master plumber.
Yes, because generally speaking, you don't know how to do that on their master electrician, master plumber, whatever you need. They'll show you how to do it. They won't actually do the hiring because that person's going to be working for you, but they'll say, this is where you need to look. This is what you need to ask. This is what you look for. And we're going to help you do that.
And what would the typical ramp up be? So you got to have revenue to keep the doors open after the 100,000's gone. What does that ramp up typically look like, or what should, and again, in the plumbing space,
Mhm.
how would that look?
So once you get the franchise fee paid, got signed the agreements, you go into training. With the service industry, it's pretty easy because you just get trained. And then once you get out of training, a week in training, then you're good to go. And they're going to help you after you get out of training. So you're up and running right away. Within a year or two, you should be bringing in some pretty decent money right away. So it doesn't take too long in the service industry to start building it up. It really depends on a couple of things. Mostly it just depends on you, how much you go out there and start following what that franchisor is telling you what to do on there and bringing that business in. But within a couple of years, you should be doing pretty good.
When someone looks at purchasing a franchise, does the franchisor provide like pro forma financials of how it should look over the first couple of years or so?
For financial disclosure statements, that's regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, on there. If that franchisor has that information in their franchise disclosure documents, that's the information that they can provide to you. Direct answer to your question about the pro forma is that they'll give them a blank pro forma. Quite a few of them do that, but they won't give you the numbers to fill in if that's not in their franchise disclosure document, because legally they cannot. What you will do, and what I'll help you do, is get on the phone with as many franchisees as possible to get that information filled in. Franchisor is going to help you get on the phone and expect you to get on the phone with many different franchisees that are currently running that business so you can fill in that form. But generally speaking, if they don't have that pro forma in their franchise disclosure document, they cannot fill it out for you.
Uh-huh. Okay. Now, if it's okay, Greg, I'd like to kind of change the focus from the kind of the entry level to like the larger end. Like I've heard, I don't know, that some franchises require $1 million or more to purchase the franchise, or whatever the sort of the large size. What does that look like, and who are the investors, franchisees, whatever you want to call them, at that level?
Generally speaking, if it's going to go, the total investment is going to be up to $1 million, and you're going to have at least $1 million net worth or more. Generally, it's going to be a couple 100,000. Units is one that comes to mind. It's like pods where you store, it's like a storage space with a, and they have a huge warehouse that you put things in. And then you'd be looking for someone with a pretty high net worth. Generally speaking, with a build out like that, you probably go with a 7A loan. So you need about 20% down on whatever it costs to that. So very high net worth people would be someone that you'd be looking for to get into something like that. Quite a few of these businesses, you can still keep your day job and you can still keep your other business and you can run them semi-absentee. A lot of my high net worth people are not necessarily into running the business themselves. They'd rather just hire a manager to do it on that. And then they put in 10 to 15 hours a week managing the manager, managing the profit and loss statements.
And give us some examples of what those, so those are more like almost active investments rather than a full-time job. What do some of those look like?
Every industry that we looked at, all of them have franchisors that say they want it full-time. They also have franchisors that say you can do it semi-passive on that. So it doesn't matter which industry that you get into, I can find you a franchise that not only says you can run it semi-passive, but they have people that have already done it. So you can call upon them, take a look at that. And then what we want to do is find out what does semi-passive really mean, especially when you're first starting out, and making certain that you're okay with those hours.
And what are some of the more attractive opportunities for somebody who's interested in that semi-passive kind of investment, maybe has $1 million to invest? What would that look like in today's environment?
I would say if you want to reduce your risk level, then look for the essential services. And if you want to invest that kind of money, then rather than just picking up one territory, we'll go over that in a sec, but pick up more than one territory on that so that you can increase your income level on those. But it really comes down to what you're comfortable investing in. Some people prefer a brick and mortar. They want that building out there that to invest in. There's not a whole lot of franchises I have that are $1 million or more. And the most important thing I would say is that it doesn't matter whether you go for a brick and mortar or service industry franchise, the amount of money you make is going to be pretty similar. If you want to make a certain amount of money and you want to go for a service industry, I'd say in general, you're probably looking at, at least a good six-figure income per territory. So if you want to increase that, then you just want to pick up more territories. With a service industry, you can service the entire area that you pick. So if you pick 3 territories from one location.
What kind of, so somebody, and these are all new franchises. These are not purchase of existing franchise business, right?
Correct, Roger.
So if somebody says, okay, I'm going to go in 3 territories, I'm going to put up, make the number round $1 million, even if it's not right, it's just easier to follow the numbers. What kind of return on that $1 million would you expect that the investor franchisee would be earning?
I'd expect to be receiving, and you'll verify this when you talk to the franchisees on that, anywhere from 20 to 25% per territory on that. And that will depend a little bit on whether you're going to run it yourself or you're going to get a manager into it. But it's a fairly decent return on your investment.
And that's 15 hours a week or so?
Generally speaking, yeah, 10 to 15 hours a week. You can do that. It'll probably take a little while longer to build up if you have a manager do it, but yes, in general.
So if you think about some of the people you've been working with longer, they're established, they're successful, what kind of numbers can people realistically aspire to if they're
Realistically, if we just take some of the essential services like restoration, electrical and plumbing, what we've been talking about, you can expect to be bringing in after, 2, 3 years, $3 million gross revenue on something like that and dropping, 20, 25% to the bottom line. Senior care industry, you bring in 50 clients, you're probably bringing in $1 million top end, dropping a couple 100,000 to the bottom line with one territory. So right around in that area.
and then if somebody does this and they're successful and now they don't want to do it anymore,
Mhm.
is there a market to sell their franchises?
Sure is. I get asked that quite often, Roger, on that one. So you're gonna sign a franchise agreement generally for 5 to 10 years. I think now it's generally 10 years. You don't have to stay there the whole 10 years. You build that up, and let's assume that you built it up and you're making money. Good thing. What you do, you tell the franchisor, I want to sell. Doesn't matter the time period, you want to sell. What the franchisor is going to do is if there's any franchisees close by, he's going to tell the franchisees, hey, Roger's selling. If you're making money, generally speaking, one of the franchisees closest to you is going to pick up your business itself. If they don't, then they tell us, franchise consultants, that we've got one out there for sale. So I've got a whole list of resales, a lot of which are not any good because the good ones get picked up right away by the other franchisees. So huge market for it. I've always got people asking, easy to sell when you're making money.
And what kind of, how are they priced? Are they valued by EBITDA or revenue, or how does it work?
Generally by past EBITDA is what you're doing. Usually about 3 times net plus any equipment that you have.
So one of the examples you gave a few minutes ago was $3 million revenue, and that's say 600,000's coming to the bottom line. So that might sell for 1.8 million, 2
Yep,
million, something like that.
sure will.
And that's because in order to produce that 600,000, somebody's got to be working, right? That's not passive.
That somebody's working on it. If you're lucky enough and you try hard enough to find a great manager and you pay them good money, then you might not be exactly making the 600,000. The business may be netting 600,000 or probably a little bit less if you're paying a manager, what you should be paying a manager to get that built up, but that manager is working that business. So yes, somebody's working that business and building that up on there, whether it be you or you found a great manager to do it for you.
What's a typical successful franchise sell? What's the range of sales prices that you see franchises after they've been built up, mature, good businesses? What are they? Is there a range?
There's so many, it's really hard to say, Roger, because there's so many different types of franchises out there on that. But most of the ones are going to be selling once they start making their good money. Most of them are going to be in the $500,000 plus range because most of the franchisors, once you're making a good six-figure income, so you're going to be, if you're making money, which is what most of my folks do, you're going to be bringing in 100, 150,000 per territory. So you're going to be selling it for 450, 500 or more, generally speaking.
Uh-huh. And are those sales generally for cash, or do you take paper back from the buyer?
I don't get a whole lot of owner financing. So most of them, the buyer is coming up with cash or a loan. Most of my folks go through the loan process on that. Generally speaking, probably, SBA loans are the majority. Some people might do a 401k rollover if they don't want to go into debt on that, but
Uh-huh.
generally SBA. And I've got people that fund franchises all the time. So funding a franchise is pretty simple because they have that track record of success. So it really just comes down to your credit. As long as you got great credit, most of my folks like to use other people's money as long as the investment services the debt.
Right. So it sounds, if I'm hearing you right, like that you actually work with your clients from the very get-go all the way through to if they want to exit. Did I get that right?
Sometimes, most of the time, my relationship with them ends once they've signed that franchise agreement. I've had quite a few of them come back to me after they've been in business for a while and say, Greg, help me sell my business or help me find another one. This one's running like clockwork. I need to add one to it. But most of the time, once they sign that franchise agreement, that franchisor keeps them so busy that we don't always keep in touch. I try, but not
Okay,
always.
I get it. So your value added is really at the beginning, helping them get into it and then helping them exit.
Exactly right. I help them go through that due diligence process so that and I've got a list of questions, franchisors, franchisees. I got funding people. I've got franchise attorney. I got CPAs, everything so that they know what they're getting themselves into and they're okay with that. That's the process I go through, walk them through that whole step, and then that's it. Usually they're done with me. I try to keep track of them, but busy.
We only have a limited amount of time. What haven't I not asked you about that I should have, or that you would like our audience to know about and consider?
We covered just about everything there is, Roger. The only thing that we haven't covered too much is on the 401k rollover plan for funding. If you have a 401k from a previous employer or an IRA and you don't want to go into debt, this is what I did to start my business. You can use that and do a self-directed 401k rollover on that, where you create a C corporation and then you just put money into your C corporation, buy stocks in it. So if you don't want to go into debt when you do that, you can use that. Pretty much a personal decision on that. That's the route I went.
For the most part, retirement money, you have this prohibition on self-dealing.
Mhm.
Is there an exception for that you're talking about, or did I misunderstand what you're?
Nope, you got it right. So your 401k plan with the existing employer that you have now, you cannot generally use to buy a business unless you take a loan out on it. If you left a previous employer and you have a 401k plan from the previous employer on that, that's what I did. I left, still had the 401k plan. You can then roll it over into a self-directed 401k plan. What that means is that you can buy stock in any corporation that issues stock, any corporation you want. You then create your C corporation, Rogers C corporation. You open up a checking account, Rogers C corporation checking account. You then buy stock. And this happens with all the stocks on a regular basis. Anyway, you just don't see this happening, is that you issue yourself a stock certificate, you transfer the money from your 401k into Rogers C corporation checking account. And now you got stock certificates. So as your business builds, your stock certificates increase in value on each one. You get valued every year on that. You can buy that back, those stock certificates back at any time. You can switch back over. But that's how that process works. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. I have people that do that. It worked out great when I did it.
I see. Where can people, people are going to need to contact you or look for your information. Where can people go to learn, either to contact you or learn more about your services and how you might be able to help them?
You can go to franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com. You can email me at greg@franchisemaven.com. You can pick up the phone and give me a call at 361-772-6401. And if you want a copy of the book, I prefer you go to Amazon and buy it, but I got a free copy for you, PDF version on my website as well. This will take you right through step-by-step process of what I'm going to take you through to get a franchise. So for all you do-it-yourselfers out there, you can get the PDF version of the book, follow that, you're good to go.
Greg, thank you. I know people can replay it. Will you just repeat the phone number once more, please?
361-772-6401.
And do you have a preferred method for people to contact you?
Pick up the phone and give me a call.
Okay.
Simple as that.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor to be here today, Roger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Sterling Insights. Stand out and supercharge your assets, where we provide the info you need from successful leading financial advisors, lawyers, and CPAs. Your hosts, Roger and Catherine Silk, invite you to learn more about Sterling Foundation Management by visiting sterlingfoundations.com.